Welcome back, everybody. New World Fantasy Football. I can't even tell you what episode we're on because we've been on a bit of a hiatus. So, how you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good, man. The New World Football podcast,
Football, fantasy
because
football.
the fantasy season is over. We are allowed to have our little off season as well. It was like being sick,
Yeah,
dad stuff going on, work stuff going on, holiday stuff going on, all the different things. But I feel like we would be remiss if we did not at least kind of tap in with everybody and talk through these playoffs so far. A lot of great games, some very surprising games. The wild card round already seems like it was 100 years ago, but it was actually literally only 2 weeks ago. What were kind of like the biggest surprises for you, like in terms of, or one of the biggest surprise for you in terms of wild card weekend?
my biggest surprise was really that the Cowboys. I thought the way the Cowboys had played all year and the fact that they hadn't lost a game at home yet, and then they're playing at home against, Green Bay has shown flashes of what they can be. But they were really good against the Cowboys and pretty much smoked them. I mean, the end of that game was
It wasn't
pretty much
close.
a full fourth quarter of garbage time for the most part. Made it look closer than it really was. And so, yeah, that was a big surprise for me.
No, it
Dallas,
was over early. That's the craziest
yeah,
score. The score is a lie. Like the game, I don't remember if it was like halftime or at some point in the third quarter, but like that pick six, I was like, oh, that's it. That's it.
yeah,
Good night.
yeah. It was. I will say it was fun to watch a few of the like YouTube, the Dallas YouTubers got their content really pushed around out there, and there's one in particular who's this bigger, older guy. I mean, I think he's probably in his 40s or 50s. I won't say his name or anything like that, but he's been a YouTuber for the Dallas Cowboys for a long time, and his whole thing is he has I think it's his son and a friend or a neighbor. I really don't watch it, so I don't know everybody. But they're basically like in the backyard or in the garage or something like that. They watch the game and they're recording it. After that pick six, it was hilarious how bad they all just were exploded with emotion of being upset
Cut the
and
show. I'm done.
disbelief. And it was like, I can't believe this, man. The fact that I don't like to live on narrative street too much because those things change. And I try to look at the teams the way that they are coming into a game and not just but the Dallas Cowboys never win in the playoffs. But then it's like, well, yeah, they proved that narrative got to get proven true once again.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, Narrative Street, if you stay on Narrative Street for long enough, it's not Narrative Street anymore. It's Truth Avenue.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know,
It turns
man.
into that. The farther you go down, it turns into Truth Avenue.
Yeah, it's perpendicular or whatever. I'm not a geometry guy, but I don't know if it's a Dak thing. I don't know if it's a McCarthy thing. I don't know, but running this thing back like it seems like they're gonna do just seems like the definition of insanity to me. Like I don't get it. Like your organization and whoever is in leadership in that organization has proven to be mentally weak. I'm not taking anything away from the Packers. They legitimately have been hot. They've been playing great. The surprising part about this game to me was that this was a week earlier than I thought it would happen. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys, I thought this would be the Cowboys game in the divisional round, right? I thought they would take care of business at home, go on the road and get smacked. But that's the problem. Therein is the problem, right? Because we knew this was going to happen. It just surprised us that it happened at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So that was my biggest surprise. And yeah, I thought that there were some intriguing things. The game between Dallas, Detroit and LA, the Rams.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
a
a good
really
game.
good game. Good game. And, you know, the Rams are one of those teams you can never count out because Sean McVay is a legit like top 5 coach.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, they hit on such a superstar in Puka. Man, you know, our take back in like week 5 or whatever it was of him being not for
A
real on the
flame out
rush.
candidate.
Oh, we've gotten so many people on that short just completely ream us. Of course, like with 2020 hindsight bias,
Yeah,
2020,
yeah. Which
which
it's
is that's
funny
the
because
internet for you.
I cut that short and I put it out there with the understanding that I was setting myself up potentially to get reamed, and I did, of course, because the
Yeah.
best part about the short is they're reaming me because I'm the one saying it that Puka Mania is
Right,
dead.
yeah. I was a little bit more open to like, hey, these things happen. Um, you know, undrafted guys somehow turn out to be great players, and they hit on a 5th round pick. So, anyways, not to make this a Puka discussion, but that game was really good, and I was happy to see Detroit go through with all their fans being starved for success for decades upon decades, and you know, Stafford going back in there and still not winning a game in Detroit is pretty funny. So, yeah, the next round, moving on.
Well, I
Mhm.
will I will take one just quick moment. Obviously, in the next round, I'm not going to get a chance to talk positively about Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's something to
but
talk.
you know, smacking up the Eagles. Obviously, I know the Eagles slumped in the playoffs, and they, you know, I thought that they would. I thought that they would look better on offense. Like their defense, legit, has just been really bad for
Mm,
the better part of the year.
yeah.
But particularly against, you know, Tampa's somewhat suspect secondary,
Mm.
and particularly in the middle of the field too. Um, in coverage, like I thought the Eagles would do better. Um, that was really the surprising thing. I actually was pretty confident. I thought the Bucks could take care of business against the Eagles, but I was just really surprised that that offense deteriorated so bad. Hurts didn't look right. It was just all bad. Really was all the surprises that I had. I wasn't surprised about Chiefs over Dolphins. Dolphins are fake. I really don't know what their problem is or what they need to do, but that's more of an AFC East preview type of conversation of what they need to get
Yeah.
real. Yeah, I was not surprised that CJ Stroud and the Texans won. I was surprised that they won by the margin they won by, but in terms of real surprises, I didn't have anything else in the wild card round, so I think we're good to scoot
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I'll just say this. The Eagles lost to the lowly Giants, my lowly Giants, before even getting to the slumping
Yeah.
into the playoffs. So, like, that
But
was
I
a sign
thought they
of
would
great.
get up for it though. That was the thing. That was the thing.
AJ Brown being out hurt a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Evans
That's
continues to
fair.
be a beast. He needs to be re-signed by Tampa, which I think he ultimately will be. But yeah, so in the next round, um, there were some good games.
Yep.
There were some good games.
There was only one washout.
Yeah.
Ravens over Texans. The
Mhm.
Ravens are good. CJ Stroud, I'm not killing CJ Stroud based on this game. He played the best overall team in the AFC, and it's not his turn yet. It's not his time. He has a roster that won 2 games before he got there.
Yeah, the skyrocket forward for the Texans this year
Yeah.
was amazing. Fun story. They've got their guy in CJ Stroud. Let's I will say for fantasy purposes, you know, pump the brakes a
Mm-hmm.
little bit on CJ Stroud. I'm not saying don't draft him. I'm not saying, you know, just don't take him in the first or second round. Dynasty leagues might be a little different, but um in your typical redraft, like we have seen rookie quarterbacks come out, have a really good year, they get crowned, and then that kind of stays where they're at, and they don't, because I think everyone assumes that they can only get better, and that's just not really true. You can stay, you can plateau, you could get worse. Your situation could get worse. Your receivers could get hurt. Your defense can improve to the point where you don't need to be throwing 3 touchdowns a game to win a game for 303 a game. 201 or 2 will do the job. And everybody jumped all over Justin Herbert after his rookie year. He kind of plateaued. I'm not going to go into all the reasons. There's a million reasons. Daniel Jones had a very encouraging rookie year and a lot of flashes, and that didn't really materialize to what Giants fans and fantasy people would hope. But it happens a lot. Just don't reach for them. That's all I'm saying. Fantasy, don't reach for them.
And I actually agree with that. And I think that the reason that I'm hearing is not saying like, oh, CJ Stroud is fake. He's not going to be good. He's a flash in the pan. That's not what I'm hearing. No. It's just because he was such a great story this year, and because we saw him have a great playoff game, he can get overdrafted, and he's not a running quarterback, so he's not going to give you stuff with his legs. So for fantasy purposes, he can still have a really good sophomore year, but if it's not super high volume passing attempts, if it's not magical touchdowns, you will just end up being disappointed because it's so hard for those guys to hit that magical 4,040 mark, right? Like that's what we need to have a top 5 finish.
Yeah, for a purely passer, I mean, he had like under 200 rushing yards the whole year, so that's not a knock on him. The guy's proven to be a damn good passer. But I'm just gonna go ahead and give him a nickname here. Call me racist if you want. He's Black Burrow. Similar style there. He's a playmaker, but he's a playmaker with his arm.
Yeah.
That is what you want as an NFL team. As a fantasy player, you're hoping to get somebody who's going to rush some touchdowns in for, those goodie bonus points.
Yeah, it's not racist to just say that somebody is black, by the way.
What year are you living in?
It's pretty clear.
What year are you living in? I'm pretty sure it is. Based on the internet.
On the divisional round, I guess we kind of already touched on Texans, Ravens. I mean, Lamar was amazing.
Yeah. Beast.
He's a beast, but the fucking defense is a beast too. Like
man. They're a great team. And it's what I got to say about the Ravens is it's funny because a lot of people were like, and that's it. Mark Andrews is out. Dude, I mean, I've heard people talking about Brock Bowers getting drafted super high, and he probably will, I guess, but the Ravens just lost like a perennial all-pro for most of the year. They didn't miss a freaking beat. Tight end is a luxury, not a need. It's not like your top need for an NFL team.
I think that everyone is just hoping to get the Travis Kelce equivalent of like, okay, because Mark Andrews is awesome at catching the ball, but like he's an inline blocker a lot too, right? So like he's still kind of like the quote unquote traditional tight end, but also catches a lot of passes, where Travis Kelce was always just such a nightmare in coverage because he has such a knack to find open spots on the field and have all that instinctual stuff to make him like a receiver tight end hybrid. But yeah, I mean, it's the Kyle Pitts thing, right? You take a tight end in the top 5. I think they just chose the wrong tight end in the top 5. I think Brock Bowers is clearly a much more polished player than Kyle Pitts coming out. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, we love linebackers. You don't take linebackers in the top 5. Right? Like there are some positions that I think should go higher than others.
The only way you're taking a linebacker, like a traditional like middle linebacker that early, is if you believe that their pass rush ability from that spot is otherworldly, like Micah Parsons. And he didn't go, I think he went like 11th overall, something like that. So, You don't, yeah, your
They
traditional
got to
like
be an
kind of,
outlier.
yeah, you'd have to be an outlier for sure. But anyways, let's go into a whole nother conversation that we have plenty of time to talk about in the offseason. This week, we've got some good matchups to determine the Super Bowl.
We do. I did before we fully move on to like picking some of the games. I did want to talk a little bit about. There's only four total games in divisional round, so I think we can give each game a little bit of a little bit of love. 49ers over Packers. Ultimately, the 49ers prevailed, but I think it was a sweatier game than a lot of people anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Brock had his moments.
McCaffrey just continues to be awesome.
Yeah, McCaffrey's just awesome. The 101 next year solidified in my mind. I don't care what anybody says.
Even in Dynasty?
Not in a total Dynasty redraft, I think, because
would you
obviously
rather have Bijan Robinson?
I would go with the youth there if I was drafting a team, but I would actually respect the person to say, I don't care. I'm going to establish my team as the favorite this year and then worry about next year.
That's what I would do. I was like I want to win every year.
I would respect that.
Yeah, I want to win every year. I don't care. The age doesn't matter that much to me unless they were like that far apart. But
yeah. No,
anyways.
So I think there's two schools of thought there, but in a redraft, he's 100% that guy for me. The person that is not 100% that guy for me is Brock. I think the same questions that everybody's been asking all year long kind of reared their ugly head. Like, he had his moments at the end of the game where he was able to do enough to make it happen. But the delta between his play and Jordan Love's play was pretty wide. And in the playoffs, when all of these quarterbacks seem to kind of be rising to the top, I think that's a major concern for the 49ers. So what did you kind of see throughout that game that stuck out for you?
I'm kind of going to big picture this because this is what I was thinking about even during the game. No, people are very emotional about Brock Purdy because he is the type of player that is polarizing, and he sparks like strong opinions because there's a whole camp of people who just don't want to believe that he's good, and then there's another group of people who truly believe he is a good quarterback, but it can go overboard on both sides because I think there are so many QB stats that get thrown at you. And in my opinion, win-loss record is not a QB stat. It's a team stat. But it gets talked about as a QB stat. Like
all the time.
He's won this many games. He's never lost a regular season game, blah, 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 blah. For last year, they were talking about that.
Super Bowls are a quarterback stat because that's what they use to erase the careers of guys like Dan Marino.
Right, exactly. And which is not cool. And I think that goes too far on both sides. Brock Purdy, in my opinion, is a high-end game manager. Game manager is not a negative thing. But when you have a nasty O-line, the best playmaker from the backfield, you have a great play caller, another multifaceted weapon in Deebo Samuel, a stud true receiver, a stud tight end. You have everything working for you on that offense. They constantly get a ton of yards after catch, which can also be a QB stat, though, because he still has to place the ball where the guy can keep running. So that's important, too. A lot of people, that gets something Tom Brady did better than anybody was set up these running backs to run away from defenders where he threw the ball, which, I've studied the quarterback position a lot, messed around playing quarterback on the streets. I pretended it was really important because it was fun for me, but that was important. You want to throw a guy open, and throwing a guy open is putting them in a position where they can make a move after the catch. I think Brock Purdy is pretty good at that. So, dude, with quarterbacks, it's you got like your 5 or 6 dudes who are just absolute franchise changers. You got like 20 to 24 guys who can do the job and you can slate them in wherever you want. I'm not going to get into that. And then you got a bunch of some bottom dwellers in terms of starting quarterbacks out there, like just top of my mind, Kenny Pickett being one of those guys. Not say he's the worst, but just or Desmond Ritter, maybe. Like guys that are bottom dwellers who really are just kind of on the bubble of being starters and maybe shouldn't be starters, but they just are because of the situation of the team. Brock Purdy, to me, is right in the middle there. Somebody who can do the job. You want to pluck him out of San Fran and put him on a rough team, put him on the Giants, put him on, I don't know.
Probably wouldn't be great.
Put him on Carolina, put him on the Patriots this year. Like he would have struggled. So
and I think that we're in agreement for sure on that front, because you're right. There have been some, and you use the word high level game managers. Somebody on a pod I heard earlier used a term that I found funny. A game executive. It's a step above a
sure.
game manager.
That's cool.
A high level game manager can win a Super Bowl.
Sure.
Can. It is possible. But you laid it out yourself. Like, if you have the amazing player out of the backfield, if you have all your receivers humming on all cylinders, whatever the case may be. But it kind of proved in this game with Debo going down, that's not always going to be the case, and probably the reason why arguably the best roster in football over the last 3 seasons has fallen short every time, right? Obviously, Brock went down last year when they didn't have a quarterback to do all of it. Obviously, it became very rough at that point. But they've had this awesome roster for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And
the reason why quarterbacks always win MVPs, I know it sucks, but it's also kind of fucking true at the same time, because it is, if there is one single position that is worth more than any other position on the field, everybody knows it is the quarterback, because as much as I've been a little bit critical of Brock, obviously when they had was it Josh Johnson that had to step in, it didn't matter that they had C-Mac. They couldn't move the ball. So that is all well and good, but when we preview the next game, I'm gonna kind of slightly reopen that conversation, because to me it's just really difficult for the game manager guy to ultimately get you all the way to that point. Everything else has to be so perfect around him. That hardly ever happens when you have 3 win or go home games in a row. That's the thing. Hardly does that happen where everything goes off on schedule.
Yeah.
On the Packers side, Jordan Love's a fucking dude. I don't know how they keep doing it every time that they just find a franchise quarterback when everybody else, who's scouting? You know what I'm saying? Why doesn't the Carolina Panthers just steal that guy? Whoever's scouting quarterbacks, because they don't have to scout a lot of guys because they're 3 for 3. And I'm really excited about their fantasy prospects going into next year, like the Dontavian Wicks of the world, the Jordan Reeds of the world. Like, those are guys I really like going into next year. But was there anything else out of the 49ers Pack game, despite a lot of clenched buttholes in the Pacific Northwest, that really stood out to you?
Not really. It was a fun game, so I'll say that. I'm happy that the NFL has delivered some fun games in the playoffs, but kind of to your point with the whole game manager, game executive thing, I will say it takes a run of playing above your head too. That can happen. I mean, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl doing that. He played well above his head at the right time.
Which is just crazy how that happens. Because he stinks. He stinks.
Yeah. He was never really good, but he had He had a good run. They won a Super Bowl with him. So, anyways, moving on, man. I'd love to talk about these games this week. And why don't we just start on the NFC side since we're already kind of talking about San Francisco?
Yeah. So on the NFC side, Detroit makes it through over Tampa. Baker played about as well as it's possible for him to play, but the better team won. Detroit's really good. I mean, they're able to consistently get shit going in the running game. They consistently kill you in the middle of the field. CJ helps them a little bit on the back end coming back, but that defense is still a little suspect, in my opinion. Like, their defense looked better against the Bucs because I don't know if it was scheme or what, but they just had like 2 completely missed naked blitzes that just were never picked up. That ended up being huge in that game. I think the Lions probably have as good of a chance as anybody against the 49ers again, because I think that this game is 2 quarterbacks that I don't think individually plucked off these teams anybody is particularly scared of, but they have great teams around them. And so I think it's going to come down to scheme. And it's going to come down, I think, to the trenches. And essentially, I think both of the offensive lines on each side are better than the respective defensive lines on the other side. So I like a high scoring game here, and personally, I like the Niners to take care of it in their home. I think that they're going to be able to do what the Buccaneers were not able to do, which is to have more explosive plays and finish explosive plays against Detroit. But I don't know how you're feeling about that.
Well, I'll just get it out there, and we'll I picked against
Unpack
Detroit.
it from there.
I picked against Detroit one time this year, and that was a mistake. I can't do it. They're just my darling team, and I just want it for the story. That I hope that Dan Campbell just has his defense so fired up that they just come out and make people once again just continue to question Brock Purdy because their defense plays that well and they put pressure on him. I want to see that. Aiden Hutchinson is the real deal. Not to say Nick Bosa on the other side isn't. He's probably still better than Hutchinson, but Hutchinson's a dog, and I think he's going to have a big game. Jay, I gotta go Detroit.
And you said hope in there. Like, what is it specifically about the Detroit matchup versus San Fran that you would say they would really be able to win in that regard? Because you were hopeful about their defense.
I think that they're going to be able to scheme a good game plan that's going to be able to expose their biggest weakness on offense, which is Brock Purdy. As much as I think he is a good, capable quarterback, I think they can find a way to expose him. And it's more about the magic, man. It's more about the magic of the Detroit run that I can see continuing. And, San Fran has had their struggles too when it's come late in the postseason. So I'm hoping that narrative street, maybe that turns into Truth Road. And I don't know. I just want to see. It's more of a want than anything.
Yeah, I feel that.
Detroit
and I know
in the Super Bowl.
I know Detroit is near and dear to your heart, but their run's already been magical. They won 2 home playoff games. That dome was rocking 2 in a row.
When you're on a great ride, you don't want it to end. And that's kind of like I like being a pseudo Detroit fan right now. And
I feel that. My opinion on the game is Goff on the road, San Fran I think universally is understood to be the better team. You know,
Sure.
Debo's big, right? Like, I don't know if he's playing or not, or what the deal is with Debo. That is big, one way or another. But ultimately, look, honestly, I thought the Lions could have been had if a couple big plays, an interception drop, a tipped ball that turned into an interception. Like, I think that the Lions are close to being a Super Bowl contending team. But I still think they need a little more, and the Niners are going to be able to swing by. But moving to the
Ultimately,
AFC side,
I hope it's a good game. That's really what.
Dude, I hope both these games are good.
Yeah.
I'm pumped about seeing both of them. Before moving to the Ravens Chiefs matchup, I think that we would be a terrible fantasy football / football pod, and we would be remiss if we did not at least mention that crazy Chiefs Bills game, and the performances from those
Yeah.
games.
Yeah. You want to cry
And
about
obviously,
Stephon
like,
Diggs.
look,
You want
the
to cry
shit's
about
been
Stephon
talked to death. The missed kick, Mahomes over Josh Allen, the tears at Highmark Stadium, stacking it up more than snow. But I won't. The same way that Detroit is too close to your heart, the Bills are close to my heart this year.
Yeah.
So I'll let you start with some takeaways from that game, or what you kind of saw.
Man, honestly, I'm not even going to talk about the game. I'm going to talk about one player, and I know you're going to talk about this too. Stephon fucking Diggs, man. Like the one big drop I know was like what people are talking about, but just his overall performance in the back half of the year, like he's been
It's unbelievable.
he's been outperformed by freaking Khalil Shakir, dude.
Khalil freaking Shakir.
It's like what is going on there? And
Well, part of it is they're not going to him as much, which felt like a total scheme change. But that's not all of it.
Targets are earned stat. That's all I'm gonna say. Crazy stuff, man. It's insane. Like, is he even back with the Bills next year? Who knows?
I don't think so.
Yeah, and it's
I don't think he is. I was speaking to our buddy Kaysen about this the other day. I don't think he is. Like, the vibes are down. Honestly, low key, the vibes have kind of been down the last couple of years. But you know, like, in terms of production, he's been fine. He's been more than fine
until the back half of this year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the crazy part is, like, I think the easy thing for me to say about his drop in production would be, oh, well, he's just getting old. But that doesn't make sense, Andrew, because for the first 10 games of this year, he was great. He was the same old Steph Diggs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, these kind of things slowly seem to start happening over time. And, you know, I just don't think that he got old overnight like that. But,
he did.
you know, I think that it feels like a marriage that has just kind of run its course.
Yeah.
Now, could they franchise him and have him there another year? Because, like, ultimately, I know that everybody's just killing the Bills right now, killing Josh Allen. He's not clutch. He's not this. He's not bullshit. He played about as good of a game as you can play. He played a clean game. Their defense couldn't stop the Chiefs. I think they maybe punted one time. But I digress on that specific piece. Getting back to Steph Diggs, like, they're so close that I don't think that they would just drop Diggs without addressing the receiver position in some kind of way. So, you know, I could see a scenario where maybe they bring in a younger player and Steph Diggs is kind of on for one more year. I don't know, but, like, I just don't think that they're going to have this championship window open still, and just let it float away, because a lot of it had to do with the defensive injuries. They weren't able to get stops down the stretch, and ultimately, even if they would have hit that kick, didn't it feel like it would have just set Pat up for just another game-winning drive to take care of it. Like, at least that's how it felt for me.
Yeah, it did. It did feel that way, and I'm fucking sick of it. So Ravens.
It feels like the Patriots all over again, Andrew.
Yeah, Ravens.
It feels like Tom and the Patriots. Like, they just can't fucking lose.
Ravens is your fucking year. Harbaugh. It is the year of the Harbaugh. We didn't even talk about that. Harbaugh actually news today.
That's right.
Going to be the coach of the Chargers. Justin Herbert, music to his ears. That's great. Please, God, if you are fucking listening, God, please let the Chiefs lose. I do not want to see fucking Jason Kelsey's fucking bare chest. I do not want to see Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift fucking, scissoring each other in the press box. I do not want to fucking see this shit anymore. I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of it. Every year, or every game this year. Taylor Swift this, Taylor Swift that, Taylor Swift this. Shut up. I don't need to get
NFL found a new revenue stream, and they ain't gonna let it go, bro.
I do not need my ESPN app to be giving me alerts on the fact that Taylor Swift fed her fucking cat this morning. I do not give a fuck. Okay? If you were out there, let the fucking Ravens win.
But doesn't that just feel like exactly what would happen, Andrew?
Dude,
doesn't that just feel like it would?
Taylor Swift year. They won because Taylor Swift was there. Man, God damn it.
In the 23 era.
Yeah.
No, look, the Ravens should win. They should win. When I think about playoff Chiefs are different than what we saw from the Chiefs in the regular season. So they smacked up fraudulent Miami. Fine. Okay, that didn't really tell me much. But then, fucking Travis Kelce's back from the dead, right? Because he had a great game against the Bills. And it just seems like a team that elevated their play in the playoffs. So I think that this game is much closer than it probably should be on paper. But
they don't deserve it. They don't deserve a Super Bowl this year.
Well, it's crazy because dude, going back to the Bills, this was it. That's what's so frustrating to Bills fans is like the Chiefs were wounded. They were wounded this year. They were not the same team that they've been in 2020 and 2021, 22, whatever.
Right, yeah.
They were not the same team. It felt like the Bills were hotter coming in, although maybe not as healthy. But it's just, dude, it sucks. You said something about quarterbacks earlier. I'm going to make this aside right here. You can get away with a game manager in the NFC. I'm just going to bottom line it, not in the AFC. Because
doesn't feel that way right now.
You can beat one of them generational guys one time, maybe, but you're not going to beat them 3 times. And the way it's shaped up in the AFC, you're going to have to beat 3 freaking elite ass quarterbacks in a row to win. And Josh Allen, if Patrick Mahomes was not a thing, we would be glazing Josh Allen the way that we glaze Patrick Mahomes. But unfortunately, they were just born at the wrong time, the way that Peyton Manning was just born at the wrong time. He happened to be in the same era as Tom, so he can only ever hope to be number 2. That's the best that he can aspire to. What's that?
It just sucks, man. You see these Buffalo fans out there to be able to see a game in the home stadium. They're freaking shoveling snow, doing all this crap.
Brutal.
And then to lose that way and to your arch nemesis, dude, I'm just, the fucking circus of the Chiefs has got me just so annoyed. I don't want to fucking see this shit anymore. I'm so over it, man.
So this is it. This is our chance. But I will say, what has me hopeful is the Chiefs clearly have trouble with mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Their defense is really good, but what are they really good at? They're good at pressure. And pressure is often neutralized by
a good run
by
game.
the quarterback scramble. So
A good run game in general, but it helps to have that other option of
yeah. And obviously, who has a better fucking running game than the Ravens? Nobody.
Yeah, nobody does. So, I agree with you.
So I think that they're a good matchup, and they're just a more complete and better coach team than the Bills. So everything in my fucking logical brain tells me that the Ravens should win. But it's just going to be Mahomes, bro. It's just, he's going to fucking find a way because he always fucking finds a way, even when they're not the best team. I can't understand it, but he's just going to be a little shit. And it's going to be like the last 2 minutes of the game, a crazy game back and forth. One more drive to do it, and he's going to fucking do it.
Mm-hmm. And one of Tony Romo or Collinsworth, wherever network it's on, is going to be balls deep on him. So, yeah.
So my official prediction, because I'm going to go with my logical brain, is the Ravens.
I got to go Ravens for every reason, and I would love to see a Ravens-Detroit Super Bowl. See if Detroit can get some revenge on how they got blasted by them in the regular season. But it does feel like the winner of this AFC championship is going to be the Super Bowl favorite. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, because I think either team coming out, either the Ravens or the Chiefs, are going to have the quarterback advantage, certainly, and either of those teams would have other stuff, whether it's defense, running game, whatever the case may be, to make up for that advantage. So yeah, I've got Ravens. Personally, I have Ravens over 49ers to go to the Big Bowl. But just for fun, since this is by our standards a pretty short pod, I am going to throw some names for us of fantasy football style players that all participated in these playoff games and kind of do like a stock up, stock down type of thing.
Okay. Yeah, do it. Sounds fun.
And so it's just going to be some names. Give me your gut reaction and then like some reasons why. We already talked about Stephon Diggs, and I think we're both on the stock down train. Is that fair?
Yes, but I will say this. If he goes to another team with a capable quarterback, that will not plummet. That will rise him back up because people get very excited thinking about the possibilities of what that could mean.
And maybe you could buy the post Josh Allen dip, right? Well, I'll give you another one that's probably a little more interesting. David Montgomery next year.
Yeah, David Montgomery is interesting, but I believe he's going to be kind of a touchdown or bust type of player for fantasy, where it's not that he won't be involved, because he will be. But if you don't get a touchdown from him, I think that's actually true this year anyway, now that I think about it. But he scored a lot of touchdowns. He's going to get drafted to repeat his touchdown output. That's not going to happen again.
Yeah, and that's really the truth, right? Because early in the season, he was legit great, touchdowns or not.
Yeah, turning them out, man.
But okay.
Stock, I would say stock down, but not to the floor. Just like
Travis Kelce.
Stock down. I mean, he's getting to that age and mileage in his career that I think he's going to be very like inconsistent going forward. And yeah, when the playoffs come, he's going to go all out, but not the fantasy playoffs. He doesn't care about your fantasy playoffs. So
Cooper.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs know that they need to take the load off of him more. That it's been for so many years where he's getting like 12, 13 targets a game. Rashee Rice is nice, but he's not – I don't see him as being a bona fide number one. I think that they're going to be in the market for finding a stud receiver to take some pressure off.
There's no question about that. The Chiefs, no matter what happens, whether they end up winning the Super Bowl again or not, they cannot go into next season without addressing the receiver position in some kind of significant
They're
way.
pretending Kadarius Toney has a injury, so he doesn't have to be on the field at all. And
Exactly.
it's
been great.
Still, just to dunk on the Chiefs and the little bit of victory lap I can take as a Giants fan versus a Chiefs fan is your wonderful, smart, not annoying at all tight end said, "How'd they let this guy out of the building? I can't believe we got Kadarius Toney." Well, are you having fun yet? Are you having fun yet?
He like single-handedly nerfed their season, but they won their division, so it didn't matter. But he really did nerf them. You didn't hear me before, but I will ask the question again. Cooper Kupp going into fantasy drafts.
Stock down. I mean, Cooper Kupp is not the wide receiver one anymore. Flat out. He's on that team. He's not.
It happens that fast. That's crazy.
Yeah, life comes at you fast, and he will still be valuable, but I don't think he's going any earlier than the third round. I mean, and even then, it's probably too rich. He's had back-to-back seasons of ankle injuries, ankle/calf and whatever. You have to check his age, but I'm pretty sure he's 30 plus, or he will be going into next season. I think he might be 31, whatever. He's not a young receiver anymore.
He is 30. I think he's 30 on the nose, if I'm not mistaken.
He's not a young receiver anymore. You're going to be giving yourself headaches there's multiple avenues for you to have a headache with Cooper Kupp. A, obvious nagging injuries. B, you're going to expect him to be the wide receiver one anymore, and he's just not going to be. 3,
all right.
Kyren Williams is really good, and McVay likes to run the ball and let his running backs score touchdowns. So that's another reason why Cooper Kupp is not going to be the touchdown machine that he was a couple of seasons ago.
Jalen Hurts.
Well, this has a lot to do with them banning the tush push. It also has to do with Jason Kelce retiring. It's not official, but based on him eating McDonald's and getting drunk at games, I'm pretty sure he's in retirement mode. So
yeah, he just wanted to do it on his terms.
Right. And I'm like, I would put my money on he's retired. So all pro center being gone, tush push probably being banned.
Who are they going to bring in as coordinators? They got to bring in somebody.
Yep. Jalen Hurts in his own right is a bit overrated to me as a quarterback. Overrated doesn't mean bad, people. Overrated doesn't mean bad. It's just he's overrated. Yeah, I think stock down, not by a ton, because he's probably still going to end up a top 5 quarterback. Tush push doesn't mean he can't still QB sneak. He's a strong dude. We've all seen the weight room videos. He can still QB sneak. But the 16 rushing touchdowns maybe are 8 or 9. So stock down.
So this is going to be the first like minor disagreement that we have, because I've been in agreement for everything else. I hope that there's a Jalen Hurts dip next year. I hope that the horrendous end to the season creates a fantasy stock dip for him, because I would definitely buy that dip for a couple reasons. Even despite all the garbage, he was still the QB2 on the season, number 1. 2, like you said, the tush push really isn't necessary for him. Like, we QB sneak him, even if that didn't exist. Yeah. And the third thing for me is that, like, I guess the third one is wrapped up into the first one. Like, I just think his production on the ground will continue to make him a very, like, high floor quarterback option. So I personally hope that there is a playoff look terrible dip on him that you can potentially buy.
You can draft him in the 3rd. I'll draft Kirk Cousins in the 14th, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, depends on how much the dip is, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess like, did any kind of like individual performers from this playoff like come to your mind that you think could
Yeah,
have a big change up or down?
absolutely. It's kind of somebody I like. I want to just like talk about as next next year. Um, he was in the playoffs, made it further than we thought. Somebody that I can see taking a big jump next year, that is maybe you want to put him in quote unquote sleeper territory. Dontavian Wicks,
Mm-hmm.
as good as Jaden Reed has been this year, he just doesn't profile as like the outside, you know, high touchdown score. His touchdown rate for Jaden Reed was like unreal, just an unsustainable level. Where I think Dontavian Wicks is going to be able to kind of like step in and be an every down receiver next year. And
Well, he's a bigger
I,
player too,
I
which
think
is
he's going to be a
helpful.
better player all around than Romeo Dobbs. So yeah, it's just a guy that I'm kind of looking forward to grabbing late next year.
I like Wicks a lot too. He came on later than Reed. Reed makes the splash plays, I think, that people like more. Christian
He gets a lot
Watson,
of
is
Christian
that guy?
Watson feels like he's just going to be injured into oblivion sooner
Yeah,
rather than
and
later.
he, I just don't know if he's ever going to develop his game the way we hoped, like maybe his ceiling had. So yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to fantasy offenses, you want receivers that are going to be tied to good quarterbacks and
Mhm.
probably good
Good
offenses
coaching.
too.
Yeah.
And whether Dontavian is going to be the number 1 guy or the number 2 guy, he's definitely going to be the number 2 guy on draft boards. And I'll take
Yeah.
that, because at the end of the year, their numbers are probably not going to be too different.
And I think that Dontavian Wicks has a chance to be like a very Cortland Sutton-esque type guy where he just is the touchdown scorer. I can see that being a possibility for him. And yeah, this, like I said, the Christian Watson, I didn't say this, the touchdown rate for Jaden Reed is unsustainable.
Yeah.
Christian Watson's lower, like his legs are unsustainable. And he's also being carried by a like 5 or 6 game stretch from a season ago where he was scoring touchdowns at an unsustainable rate as well. So yeah, I think that the chemistry throughout the year has really been being built with guys like Jaden Reed, Wicks, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson. Unfortunately, not being on the field means that you can't really get that chemistry built. And Jordan Love is, he's going to want the guys he trusts on the field. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I love that. I love that take. Obviously, another guy that maybe this is just like an unnecessary dunk for no reason, but a guy that I think would be probably stock down going into next year, personally for me, is Debo. I'm not necessarily just killing him because he got hurt in this game and that's what was most recent, but that did happen and he's gotten hurt a lot. Like
yeah,
his play style exposes himself to get hurt quite a bit. And so I just think that it's a combination of that for me. Like, okay, Debo is awesome when he's on the field. He's an extremely important player, but he's also the kind of guy that you and I talk about a lot, that it's like, you're on a high profile team. Everybody wants a piece of that offense. The offense is going to be awesome, but it's not awesome for all of their receivers all the time. So Debo would have some games where he's a big part of the game plan. He would have games where he would totally dominate. For like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, I don't know. I just don't know if I'm into that in particular.
Mhm.
But that would be
Yeah.
the only other guy that I can think of off the top of my head here.
So I kind of just want to casually, to like wrap up this pod, is just kind of talk about players that just off the top of your head, just your gut instinct, who you're excited about and who you're like really down on. So I just want to talk about this player because I think next season,
You're saying outside of the playoffs now,
outside of the playoffs,
like anywhere.
just like players that have stuck in your head for whatever reason, as
Yeah.
this guy's going to go too high next year, this guy's going to go too low this year. I'm excited about this player. You know what I'm really excited about next year is actually Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that he
Yeah.
showed a
He's
lot of
awesome.
flashes this year, and that next year, even with Tyler Lockett still on the roster, I do think he's going to take his spot.
Yeah, I mean, well, like, how much longer can freaking Tyler Lockett do it? You know what I'm saying?
And they play a little bit of a different style where Lockett has been more of the downfield threat and JSN has been more of the possession guy. But I think he has a chance to turn into somebody like similar to Amon-Ra next year. Difference being like, who's the quarterback going to be? Because Pete Carroll not being there, Seahawks. We'll see if the Seahawks what they
They
do
might want to
about their
start
QB
over.
position. I think Drew Lock is a free agent. Are they going to keep him around? What's going to happen with Geno? Blah blah blah. We'll see. But I think he's a guy I'm excited. I'm excited for next year, and I think we'll be able to get him at a pretty good price.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just like think about players like right completely off the rip. I mean, there's certainly players that I think came on towards the end of the year that were really good.
Anybody that you're totally out on next year?
That I'm totally out on?
Yeah, like relevant players this year that you're just out on next year.
You mean besides Austin Eckler?
Well, yeah.
All the old guys, man. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys. We talked about some of those guys, but
how do you feel about Derrick Henry?
Dude, you literally took the name right out of my mouth.
Sorry.
The way I feel about Derrick Henry is thank you for the memories. You're the ultimate beast, the ultimate hoss at running back. Love you. But it's a young man's game, and I got to move on. I know that he will hop onto a different team than the Titans next year. I don't think he's done playing football. And frankly, when I say I'm done, I'm saying I'm done drafting him to be an RB1 in fantasy.
Double-digit touchdown.
Yeah, but it just depends, right? Like if you go to an offense, like let's just say he goes to the Ravens, right? I ain't drafting him in the first round again because I just don't think that
well, he'll get hurt if he's on the Ravens. That's what the Ravens running backs do.
That's all they do. But like I won't take him in the first round, but like I mean, if he's on the field, is he like an automatic like red zone vulture running back? Yeah, I like those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he can still be that guy, but I just know that his name is probably going to drive his like fantasy value and his fantasy price to a point that I'm just not into it. The obvious names outside of him, Tony Pollard, no. Najee Harris, he came on near the end of the year, but you know I'm never Najee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a no. And then unfortunately, man, I don't know. Javonte Williams. Like, is he ever going to look like that guy that we're super excited about? Like, well, like, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, I think we got to hit the rewind button on that one and try to remember most players with that kind of knee injury take a full year to really truly recover. So he's a guy that I feel will get undervalued, actually.
So that might be a stock up guy.
Only because the way I see it now is he's going to come in on the rankings pretty low. And it is difficult to, they're going to be a hard offense to project because Russell Wilson's going to be gone. Sean Payton has always done well with running backs, but then again, he has like 3 at a time.
Yeah.
So that's a hard one. That's a really difficult one, but I don't know. I think for me, maybe I'm a little bit more stubborn than you. I don't like to give up on players that I know have top end talent. Logically, that's the thing about fantasy football. It's a very emotional game we play, and it's
Well,
also
and
very
it's a guessing game too.
yeah, and it's also very um recency bias is always going to be there with fantasy, which it kind of has to be. But when you just put this in a logical perspective, he completely destroyed his knee. It does take about a full year to really get back. He's still very young. So I think he has the potential to actually be kind of a steal next year.
Yeah, I mean, like with anybody, if their draft price dictates it, and certainly because I know that he should be the starting running back on that team. Whatever they do
Unless
to
they
address
draft somebody early, but
to address the quarterback position. But yeah, I mean, there's those older players, particularly at the RB position. To answer your question more directly, I'd be out on, and I'm tell you right now. Am I out on Travis Kelce, the player, if he stays in the league? No, I think he's going to stay productive for as long as he wants to play. But I'm out on him because he's not going to be the tight end one anymore. And you don't pay that price. You don't pay that draft price on a guy that is not going to be, that you don't know for a fact is going to be the 101 at his position. We talked about that on a previous pod as well.
so I got one for you. I'm going to assume he stays with the team he's on now. But Mike Evans, stock up, stock down. How are we feeling?
Stock flat. Mike Evans is going to Mike Evans until he
He's
decides
going
to
to
not
be
Mike Evans anymore.
when we compare it to where he went last year in drafts, this past season.
You're saying his draft. I mean, his draft stock has to go up because he was criminally undervalued last year.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yep.
yes, when you're
Called
talking
that
about
one.
ADP, then yeah, for sure. But in terms of production, I mean, is he going to quite get the top end production he got this year? I mean, fuck, I don't know. That's hard to do. 13 touchdowns is hard to do.
Yeah.
But he'll get at least 1,007 because that's what he always does.
Yeah. And I think if Baker remains the quarterback there, which I don't see why they wouldn't bring Baker back.
No, they're going to.
He's going to be. I don't see Baker changing his ways either. Of like, all right, where's Mikey? He did that a lot this year. I think it's funny. Like Tampa Bay kind of has their trio. Like a lot of good offenses, especially for fantasy football, in the past have had that trio of
they are a trio.
QB, RB, wide receiver trios that you want on your fantasy teams. Now Baker's kind of more of a streamer, but obviously he hyper targets Mike Williams, and Rashad White has broken out this year, and especially getting involved in the passing game as much as he has. It's like,
and Godwin was better second half of the season.
He was, but he's still a guy to me that he's kind of like in flex territory, wide receiver 3 flex territory.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that nothing else happens with their offense, I expect it to stay the same, basically.
Is Godwin under contract, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Godwin's going to be under contract. It's really, honestly, everybody else. It's Big Mike. It's Baker. It's on defense. It's Winfield. Shaq Barrett may or may not be there. So there's a lot of. They had to kick the can down the road with money so much because of Brady, and they have to get his money off the books that they ended up with a lot of free agents this year. So I don't want to see Mike anywhere else, man. I don't want to see him in another jersey.
I don't think he goes anywhere. They're gonna find a way to make that work. I feel pretty confident about that one. Other players, who's a very intriguing one for me because of this reason as well. But Saquon Barkley,
that's tough. That's a tough
one. he might not even be on the Giants next year. And then even if he is, I feel like they've got to try to bring in somebody to really take some workload off of him, because he's been running to the ground since like the start of his career. And obviously he has an injury history now.
Wasteful.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is why years ago a lot of smarter Giants fans were like, this pick sucks. As good as the player is, now we're here. Now we're here with them.
It wasn't time yet. It wasn't time for the vanity picks. The running back is a vanity pick when you have everything else in place.
Bye, Dave Gettleman. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
could add Josh Allen.
I got to imagine that Saquon tries to ride out the remainder of his career trying to get a ring. I mean, I know that New York is likely to do the same thing at quarterback for at least one more season. I don't think they really have at least much of an opportunity to change it at this point.
Well, the rumors are the Giants are rumors now. Rumors. It's still far away from the draft, but apparently they're already talking to Chicago.
So obviously if they do that, that changes everything, right? In terms of what you're trying to do, and obviously the hope would be, well, it's just CJ 2.0, right? That's the expectation in terms of a quick turnaround, but provided that doesn't happen, I think Saquon's fate is the same fate as Derrick Henry, which is I'm going to sign a reasonable deal with a contending team and maybe not necessarily be a platoon back, but not be featured as much in the offense as he was in New York. So I just don't love the fantasy outlook either way. Like whether like you're on the Giants and whatever influx situation is going on there, or you go to, I keep using Baltimore as the example, but Baltimore, where all running backs go to have 6 great weeks and die.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just don't love his prospects for fantasy going into next year.
It's crazy too, because he was pretty productive this year. You'll have to go see on Sleeper where he ranked, but pretty solid. Scored a good amount of touchdowns. He's 4 years younger than Derrick Henry. Like, I still think there's a path for him.
His knees ain't 4 years younger.
I mean, physically they are, but he's gotten injured more than Derrick Henry, more significant injuries. It's that situation. It's a really tough one.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't make an intelligent decision on that until you see how the offseason shakes out. But
I have one more player I'd like to talk about. He's probably been, not by you, but by fantasy players, there's a chance he's been forgotten by some. But a guy who can be a game changer both in real football and your fantasy team, Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson was showing, for the brief amount of time he got to play football this year, he could be a game changer for your fantasy team.
To the moon. And
his passing was honestly more advanced than I would have thought it would have been. Now, very small sample size.
Extremely small. But
I do think that as long as he can just be respectable in that and not turn the ball over, I don't see any path where he's not like a top 8 quarterback next year.
Yeah, I mean, well, unfortunately, there is one path that he's not a top 8 quarterback, and that's getting hurt.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course, that's anything.
But it's just, that's the. So obviously, I listen to a lot of indie pods and stuff like that. And I don't, not INDIE, INDY.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. You see that game coming out?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, I just listen to a lot of hipster pods talk about Birkenstocks. No, there's a lot of hand wringing over that, right? Because it wasn't just one thing. It was a shoulder thing. It was the concussion. It was the knee. There was, his style of play and his body leads him to this like scenario where he opens himself up to injury. Kind of like Lamar, but worse, because Lamar has a natural ability to kind of, whether it's slide, he's a little more agile and nimble. Like he kind of tries to avoid the hits a little more than Richardson. I think it's this athletic arrogance thing where he just gets hit and just absorbs it. And he was actually in press conferences, exit interviews at the end of the year. He was very like flat and boilerplate. Are you going to change the way you play? No. It was like literally a flat answer.
That's fine. That's fine. Coaching's going to grab him by the fucking ear and be like, dude, go the fuck down. Like they're going to turn him into a safer player. And ultimately he's going to do that because it's my money, man. My money. Like you're not going to get a second well, you are play quarterback, but you're not going to get the monster contract if you're hurt every year. Like he wants that money. He's going to play smarter.
And he's a mature kid. And what I mean when I say that is I should have given a little more context to that. He talked about playing smarter, but also saying that the way like his running and his physical style of play is like that's a big part of like what he's here to do. So like he needs to do that to like be the player that he is.
Nobody wants Josh Allen to stop running people over either. He's just
right, exactly.
He's just been fortunate enough to not get hurt. So
so yeah, I think a lot of that was just bad luck. But yeah, I mean, like I think just I think the main thing for me, what I hope as a fan personally is, dude, if it's a big game, it's a gotta have it down in a gotta have it spot. Hell yeah, try to run somebody over. If we're down 2 scores or we're up 2 scores, you know what I mean? And it's second down, maybe just live to fight another one. I think that's like, it's just the situational awareness type thing. And he was hurt in one of those situations in one of those games. But, regardless of any of that, I completely agree with you. Like, I hope he stays a secret because I plan on having some shares of him because you're never going to get Anthony Richardson in the late rounds again. And that's my prediction. That's my hope. You're never going to get this kind of discount. This is the Jalen Hurts discount from 2 years ago, right? 3 years ago, whatever it is now.
Before
you're never going to get him for this price again because he's going to do the cheat code things. If you thought Jalen Hurts could squat,
yeah, and I think it's a big transition for anybody to go into the NFL. Anthony Richardson's whole life, he's been, well, after he grew up, he's been what, 6'4", 6'5", however tall he is, 230 something pounds, and just the best athlete in the field anytime and even on an NFL field, he probably still is the best athlete most of the times. But at the same time, you got
everybody's big on defense.
Grown men who are running into you full speed and I don't care what anybody says, bro. Defenders are trying to take you out as a quarterback. They are.
Yeah.
Like,
well, especially
their jobs
they don't get the chance to anymore.
Yeah.
They don't get the chance to. So if you're not going to slide, their dick is fully erect when they hit you. Like they're so fucking stoked.
Which some of those guys that hurts more than anything else. But like, yeah, they have an opportunity to knock a quarterback out of a game. They want to do that. It makes their job a lot easier. So
no, hell yeah, bro. No, I mean, dude, that's a great call out, and I could I could gush on AR all day long. Like, I'm super excited about his fantasy prospects next year. Like, obviously, the injury thing may scare some other people away. Like, honestly, I'm a little scared about it, but I don't care. Like that potential upside, I'm going for it,
dude. And that's one of those positions too. Like, for instance, if you're taking Anthony Richardson, let's just say he's I don't know, a 6th rounder next year. Like,
yeah, give or take.
Who cares? Because you're not severely you're not making a severe trade-off on your roster. And if it goes anywhere even close to where it went last year or this past season, still going on, the fantasy season where half the quarterbacks got injured, like there's going to be so many opportunities for streamers. Who cares? Like you can piece it together as long as you have Anthony Richardson for the postseason stretch in fantasy and you make it. I think he has a chance to be like a true game
Wow.
changer. And
I'm looking at way too early rankings for next year. Dude, they're on to us. They're on to us. They have him as a tier 2 guy.
it makes sense. It makes sense in the brief like 4-game sample size that we got, if that. I don't remember what it was, but it was very little.
Yeah, well, it
Some
wasn't
crazy
even 4 full games, but he appeared in 4 games.
Yeah, shame, man, shame for a rookie's season
Yeah.
to go that way.
It's really gonna be interesting what happens with the Colts next year. I actually, honestly, my expectation is probably less than 10 wins, because I think, look, you're bringing along a young guy, and he still is going to be very raw. So like, I think that there's going to be some up and down stuff that happens throughout the season, but in terms of upside, you got to keep up with the Jones in that division. Like,
the Texans obviously made a big jump. We'll see if they can maintain that. I think they can. The Jags are still a very solid team, and then the Titans look like they're kind of going on the downward spiral right now. No Vrabel to keep it together. We'll see. That's kind of a mystery.
I know, and dude, we haven't even talked about all these coaching firings or anything like that. We'll and no need to get into that. We're gonna do full division previews, later on this offseason, but them firing Vrabel,
yeah,
so all time poverty move.
I'll ask this on the pod, but what I really want to do going forward, I'd like our project to be going through every team post-mortem and like basically early projections for next year, but like what went right, what went wrong,
like
for
a team autopsy.
Pretty much, yeah. For fantasy purposes, of course. Like trying to zoom out on these teams and not be so reactive and emotional about this guy and that guy. And like, okay, well, did this happen? Does this guy have a chance to bounce back? Does this guy have a chance to maintain? Whatever. Like, are they going to be a riser? All that kind of stuff. Just I think that'd be interesting fantasy content.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Individually, kind of deep diving on the teams. Like, yeah, I think it's just kind of a different way to look at it, in terms of, instead of like comparing the teams, among their divisions. But yeah, I'm down, man. I'd love to do that.
All right, sounds good. Anything else you want to talk about tonight before we jump off here?
Nah, man. This devolved into dudes ranking guys, which I thought was awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad. We had a chance to talk some ball.
Well, we can be dudes ranking guys in lots of different ways.
Yes, that's a different pod. That's the New World Fantasy After Hours.
After Hours, we'll see how you guys measure up. But, all right, y'all. It's been a fun pod. Right. A lot more chill.
All right, people.
Have a good
one.
Hope
you enjoyed it. Have a happy conference championship week and/or Super Bowl. Enjoy the games.
Let's do the playoff.
Go Ravens.
Game.